Hey guys, welcome to my new channel. My name is Tobias. If you got to create hard surface models for games, this can be a very time-consuming process. You need your low poly, your high poly, you have to create UVs, and at the end, you have to bake all that stuff into normal maps. Today I will show you a faster way in Houdini to get your high poly mesh from your low poly mesh, also including auto-generated UVs. And all of this in one batch. Alright, in order to get that whole thing working in Houdini, we have to create hard edges in the first place. I'm using Blender here, but it doesn't matter what app you're using, be it Maya, 3ds Max or whatever. The principles are all the same regarding hard edges and or smoothing groups, whatever you may call it. So I made a simple remote control thingy just to show you a mesh including convex, concave and hard edge areas. Because if you don't set up it properly, you may end up having some issues in Houdini later on. So as I said before, the real crucial thing is to create proper hard edges. The hard edges in Blender are marked in green here. And from these hard edges here, we'll get our creasing guides, UV guides, and most importantly, we get our normal attribute in Houdini. At first, we have to import our model we made in Blender. And we just put a geometry node here. And in the geometry node, we need a file node. In this file node, you can just drag and drop your FBX file. Right. And one important thing is that you have to divide your models in Houdini by 100, because Houdini uses its own world space. So we need a transform node here. And divide it by 100. Okay, with transform node, you can always make your own presets. Just take the node with the altered values, go to the cogwheel and save preset. Now you can name your preset to your liking. So I always used my own scale presets. Next we'll use a split node. Of course, we want to separate our trackball from the main mesh. I use this null node here just for organization purpose. And then let's call this thing here remote. And you can always tint your nodes. I will always recommend that because it's better for organization. Sorry, I forget, you have to, of course, name your group in split node. And next we'll use the most important node here for our workflow. It's called group from attribute boundary. And just also tint it. So you got this attribute here. The default attribute is UVs. And what we want to do now is to get our hard edges from Blender. So the hard edges are stored in normals. So we need to use the normal attribute here. And as you can see, here are our hard edges. And we will name our group here hard edges. And from there we can already start our auto UVs. Name these UVs. Tint it. And next we have to add additional cuts. Of course, we need here on these curved areas, we need cuts. And we have to make cuts here and probably here. So adding this additional cut is more like a semi-procedural way and no pure procedural way. Maybe you could use a measure node and a little bit of wax to calculate the seams on these curved areas or on these cylindrical areas. But to be honest, I don't think it's worth the whole effort, because we got a pretty static mesh here, and we will not create something like a generator, like a cable tool or a pipe tool, and therefore we should keep it simple here. So in order to add our manual cuts, we need a group node. And we will change the group type from primitive to edges. And with this little arrow here, we can get access to the edges directly. Okay, I guess we need some cuts here. And on the upper side, some additional UV cuts at the end. We need cuts on these cylindrical areas. All right. Cover all additional cuts. And now we hit enter. Now you see in the base group we got all edges that we just set here. Okay. So next step will be, we got this additional cuts. Pull it just add cards or something like that. And now we have to combine this recently added cuts with our old hard edges. So we'll use a combine node, a group combine node. Here we got our group name. And we take our old hard edges equals to the hard edges. And we now will add or union our old edges with the new add cuts. And now you'll see we have our old hard edges with the new UV cuts. Alright, Houdini just crashed, and maybe it's a bug in this current version. In group type, you have to make sure you select the edges. In previous version it was okay, but it will crash if we use our next node. So next node will be UV flatten to auto-generate our UVs. Let's also tint it. Alright. And under the flattening constraint and seams, we'll add our hard edges. And under layout constraint, we also use our hard edges as layout guidelines. Alright. And UVs in Houdini are under E5. And you can also split your screen with Control 1 or Control 2 and switch back with Control 1. And for example, take this window and use it for your UVs. And here you can toggle on, toggle off your UV themes. And here you can add a checker texture or checker map. If you want to scale your checker map, you have to hit D on your keyboard. And under UV map scale, you can now just increase the checker size or lower it. Alright. Next we will lay out UVs, and we will use the UV layout node. By island position means that the UVs are aligned to the real world space in 3D. So, for example, from bottom to top. And got a lot of one important thing is, of course, the island padding. Let's say we want to have a 2K map. The recommended padding size is 16 pixels for a 2K map. And so we have to take 8 pixels around the shell borders. We can also check apply padding between island and target boundary and spread island to the all available space. So we'll cover all space. And here under advantage we will, as I said, we will use a 2K map. And what iteration means, it's calculating the best space between all UV shells. And the higher the amount, the longer it will calculate to space all UVs. So maybe we can just use 50 here. There's no rule of thumb here. You have to play around what leads to the best results. And to be sure, we will use only the main mesh. I will take my remote, another group. And what I don't like here is this little bow here. We can rectify this shell here to get more space. And what we'll do is to add the new rectify group. Should be this part here. And we will go back, put it in between here. We call it, I don't know, rect group. And one important thing is that it has to be primitives. The viewport selection can be a bit awkward here in Houdini. We want to get a poly ring on this area. So you have to select it, then hit A. And then you have to hit the middle mouse button to confirm the selection. That said, it's a bit awkward. And now we hit to enter. And we got our rectify group here. Now we go to the UV flatten. And under rectify group, we have to, that's one disadvantage, you can't toggle this. You have to manual type the rect group. So we just copy it here. And we'll paste it. And we can also use it for the layout. So, and as you can see, the previous bow here is now flattened or rectified. As you see, this takes a bit of time to calculate because we set the, no, sorry, here. We set the iterations to 50 and it will take some seconds. You also have to keep it in mind if you raise the iteration amount. Of course, you will get better results, but it takes longer to calculate. This is also important if you maybe create your own HDAs and create generators or tools or whatever. Okay, we are pretty done here with the UVs. And due to the fact that it's more like a mid-poly mesh, no low-poly mesh, we should make a little optimization pass for our mesh. For example, we can delete this middle part and some loops here and on the back side. And for instance, in the front, I will call this optimize. All right. And we'll need a new group to select our edges we want to delete. For example, this part should maybe end this here. We want to get in that curved area. We don't need that edge loop here. This one here. Also can lead the middle edge here. That was too much, so we will delete this front lines here, front edges. We also will delete this whole stuff here. We don't need that anymore. Right, this should be enough. Confirm it with enter. And now we want to dissolve the edges, not delete it. And therefore we need dissolve edges. I don't know, let's call this group this for dissolve. Right, now you see we get rid of our unwanted edges. Next step, we should triangulate the mesh because it's a game mesh and we need it later on also for baking. So it's always good to triangulate your stuff. And here we can check all this stuff here. And here you can see the strengths of Houdini nodes. If you toggle on the checker, you will see you got no distortion, even after altering the mesh. If you would do it in a common 3D app, you will get a lot of distortions and you hardly have to recreate your UVs. And in Houdini, you can go always back and forth. But it's pretty powerful and it saves you a lot of time. And actually, we're done here with our UVs. Next one, we need a name node. And at attributes, we need a path. We will explain it later on. Because we need this path attribute for exporting our meshes. And for baking, we need to rename our low poly mesh and our high poly mesh probably. Because most bakers, I don't know, like Marmoset or Substance Designer, take into account the suffix. And we will call it LP for low poly. And of course, name this mesh like remote. All right. And we can put the whole stuff in a network group and call it LP and give it a color. Next, we will set up our high poly mesh. And we will get that high poly mesh from here. So we'll just add a null node. And call it out HP for high poly. And also tint it. And now we will take an object merge. So what a object merge does is it's like a portal. If you got very long node chains, you can, for example, start here with other chains or further chains. That's also tinted. And we will select our object merge and just drag and drop our null node here in the object one. So now we got a kind of, as I said, a portal from here to here. And we can just start with our high poly in this area. So it's pretty useful. Next, we'll need a poly bevel node. And we will also need our hard edges again. So, and the distance amount bevels all our hard edges. And here we will take a quite small amount. And to be on the safe side, I will use a use node. So we got no floating vertices around or something like that, which will lead to holes or corrupted areas. And here also a small amount. Next one, we need a subdivide node. You can toggle the wireframe on the mesh with Shift V. Let's say we'll take division by 3. The normals are not correct, so we'll just add a normal node. And because we will use this mesh for game purposes, you always have to keep in mind that you should use more smooth edges. Also, it may look not as realistic as in the real world, but we have to make sure we don't get anti-aliasing or checked edges in our game engine. So maybe this is a bit too soft here. You also get some strange areas that are too smooth and pinched. So go back to my poly bevel. And apparently we should use a harder edge. This means we will subdivide our bevel edge with one segment. So this should give us a better result. Next we will add some additional geometry like buttons and stuff like that. And I prepared some stuff off screen because it's more like a pipeline tutorial, no modeling tutorial. But I will go through all node steps with you. So here are the additional parts, and it's just some buttons and some knurlings on this side here. And we will merge this with our previous main mesh. All right. Now you see it's just very simple geometry. Some buttons and some knurling. Nothing fancy. And I will shortly go through all of these nodes. Just a sphere. Then I put a knife tool, so you can cut a sphere. Then a polyfill. Normal again, and a transformation to put it in the right place. Next part starts also with a sphere. Next node is an edit node. I just put the right side and put it outwards. So we get a capsule-like shape. Place it there. And just copied it. And here are the knurlings. I take a group selection of this part. Then I blast this stuff away. Subdivide it to get more resolution. These have unwanted edges. Then I use a group range to get every second poly line next to the whole stuff. Make a group for deleting unwanted areas. Then a blast node to delete the whole stuff. And a polyfill for the backside. Then I transformed it. Make a poly bevel. And at the end I subdivided it. And here we got in merge node. The next part of our pipeline are voxels in Houdini. And therefore I made a little demo scene. Okay, and this additional geometry we just added are called floaters in game art. And if you already used floaters in your pipeline, you know this can be a really pain in the ass. As you can imagine, if you got to create an extra skew mesh, or you always have to paint away every skewing issue with a mask, this costs a lot of time. So with the voxels, we can skip this process and directly put the whole stuff in one mesh, in one continuous mesh. The procedure is the same as with our main remote mesh. We also need some bevels here. Then we will subdivide it. And we will add some spheres, like could be buttons later on or something like that. So, and if we want to add geometry to our main mesh, we simply just have to merge the main mesh with the additional stuff. But if we want to subtrap additional meshes, we need a boolean with a negative form. And now we will use the voxels. Voxels are now under the remesh grid node. If you use the previous versions, it's called voxels, I guess it was lab voxels. And now they integrated in remesh grid. And if you can see now, we got a one continuous mesh. So we will not need any more floaters for this kind of workflow. Okay, and there are some things you have to take in account if you're using voxels. So actually, this whole node contains voxels, point clouds, but it also converts these point clouds into polygons again. So what you see here are actually not voxels, it's already the converted voxels into polys. And if you're familiar with ZBrush, Sculptris or Dynamesh are pretty similar to voxels here. You can see these are it's pretty similar to Sculptris or Dynamesh in ZBrush. And you have to be very careful with the division size, because the lower the values here are, the more dense are the mesh. And this is very sensitive. If you put, for example, if you go from 3 to 1, it can triple or even go higher the poly amount. And this will take a lot of time to calculate, or will even crash depending on your system, Houdini. So please be very careful with this division size and only do it step by step. And unfortunately, there's no rule of thumb regarding the settings here. What I always use is project to original. This will maintain that the smoothed version or the voxeled version doesn't differ too much regarding to your original mesh. So there are no big gaps between the two meshes. And of course, we want to smooth it out a little bit. So we got this kind of post-process features, and you have to play around with it. For example, here I'm using the amount of 6. There are also smoothing variations here, but I would recommend to only use this once if you use project to original. Because if you also use these smoothing variations, it will lead to banding issues. And sometimes this feature also says goodbye to Houdini. I don't know, maybe it's a bug in this version. So I will now play around with the settings here, and I will go back to our main mesh. And put the remesh node here. Okay, and I just did see that if you type in voxels, it's still the labs mesh. The labs tool are mainly plugins or a set of plugins made for the game industry, developed by a small team inside of Side Effects. And you can install it via your launcher. and you can install it here. You can install the daily builds or the production builds here. If you're using Houdini with for game stuff, I would highly recommend you to install these lab tools. They're pretty handy. And as you can see, the lower the vision size amount, the higher the mesh. So I will put it to an amount that I already know. All right. Takes a bit of calculation. And this looks okay. We will project to original, as I said before. And for the smoothing, I will put an amount of 4 here. And we got a pretty high amount of polygons here. And I would say we need only 10% of it. So we will Polish reduce the whole thing here. And we can go pretty low on that, like 25%. So the reduction took almost 1 minute. And you'll see these two nodes here are pretty resource and time consuming. So I would recommend to use a file cache here. And this cache gets stored in a file called bgo.sg. It's an internal file format by Houdini. And here we can just type ship name means this is it's the name of your current Houdini file. So we will not use it, because personally I always save incrementally, and this will break the link. So I will name it cache. And os means the current name of the node here. So this will be okay. The rest is also okay. We got no animation or simulation. So we'll deactivate it and choose single frame. And we will save the whole stuff, the calculated stuff in a disk. All right. It was pretty fast, so. And then we will check it and reload my mesh. So, and if you're reloading your scene or alter any nodes, you don't always have to wait until every node is recalculated in this chain. And so we can reload it from our hard drive. Of course, if you alter things here, you have to resave and reload your mesh, but this here will automatically reload the mesh. So we are pretty done here with our high poly. And I will just copy this name node for our high poly. And name it HP for the suffix. Maybe we should rename it properly. Remote low poly. You can also tint it. Remote high poly. At last, we have to prepare our both meshes for export. And for our low poly, we should also add a material. We will use the labs quick material here. Take, I don't know, this kind of gray. And you should hit this button, switch to original material. Because if you don't push the button, you probably get issues, for example, in Unreal Engine. Or while export, somehow it breaks your linking. So you should push that button, and if you rename this material like mRemote, change the color again, and like at the beginning, we have to upscale our mesh. So we'll use a transform. And we have to multiply by 100. The same for the high poly mesh. And lastly, we need to export both meshes. And for that, we will use Rob FBX. Right. We could also group this here. Network box. And call it HP for high poly. Intended. So. In Houdini, you also got the opportunity to make more curved node lines with Shift S. Looks a little better and is more organized, in my opinion. Make a little cleanup here. All right. And as I said before, regarding the remote LP node here, the rename node, now we need our path attribute for exporting. Here we will just name our mesh and we can just copy and paste from here. All right. And to get access to our path attribute, we have to check this here, the build hierarchy from path attribute. And what this path attribute will do is it will name your submeshes probably. We only got one mesh here, but usually you will have more than just one mesh or submesh. And if you're baking, you need correct naming. And if you don't use this path attribute, you will lose this naming and it will mess up your bake. So it's very important to use this path attribute, and the remaining settings can stay as they are. You have only to save to disk. That will save your FBX file in your current folder, in your current main folder. And we will do the same for our high poly mesh. And we just copy and paste it here. Copy and paste nodes, you have to use Alt and just drag it on the side. This will copy the node. And we will only rename that to HP. And also save to disk. Of course, this will take a bit longer because we got a high poly. Okay, just saved, and actually we are done here. You can highlight this export nodes and tint it. And call it export. All right. Yeah, at the end we can also use some null nodes for a better overview. Call it low. And high. We got our low poly mesh here, and the checker will not show up because we override the checker material with our quick material. And we got our high poly mesh here. So now we are ready to bake. Thanks for watching, and I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. I know a lot of Houdini users or learners are always eager to learn this black magic fuel procedural workflow, but in my opinion, as I said before in the tutorial, it's not worth the effort to use a lot of wax or something like that, because we got a pretty static mesh and a unique mesh. This would be a bit of frame bursting if you use efforts like we usually do with generators and HDAs. So this workflow helped me a lot and saved me a lot of time baking hard surface meshes. I hope we will see us next time with a new tutorial, and thanks for watching again. Bye bye.